Если внимательно посмотреть на карты, которые опубликованы, и на объективные карты, которые показывают, что там нету никакой контролируемой территории, условно говоря, от Чернигова до Сум, которая закрашена, некоторыми блогерами закрашивается красным цветом. Там есть узкие вытянутые аппендиксы вдоль дорог и дорожных развязок, ведущие к Киеву. Между этими аппендиксами территория не контролируется. Ни Сумы, ни Чернигов фактически не блокированы войсками. Они имеют сообщения, ну, если не с Киевом непосредственно, то, по крайней мере, с окружающими районами. И имеют свои собственные ресурсы и резервы. Там формируются тербаты и так далее и тому подобное. В этой ситуации, опять же с наступлением зеленки скорой, с учетом того, что Украина массированно наращивает количество живой силы, через какое-то время эти аппендиксы будут настолько уязвимы, что может повториться ситуация с финской кампанией 1940 года, с Зимней войной. Когда наши войска перли, чтобы перерезать Финляндию пополам вдоль немногочисленных дорог, а в результате значительно меньшие силы финнов, но лучше подготовленные и владеющие тактикой егерской, просто порезали эти части на кусочки и уничтожили. Придется нашим, видимо, оттуда отступать в любом случае. И, видимо, перебрасывать войска туда, где действительно есть возможность что-либо сделать. Хотя, честно сказать, я выражаю сомнение в том, что, упустив золотой месяц, первый месяц, наши войска сумеют окружить и уничтожить Донецкую группировку противника. Я хочу отметить, что, к сожалению, я наблюдаю, что украинское командование действует на порядок адекватнее с военной точки зрения, чем российское. Можете за это меня назвать предателем и так далее и тому подобное. Извините, я хоть какой-никакой, но все-таки профессионал-спецслужбист, имеющий боевой опыт. И немалый.
Важное заявление Министерства обороны Российской Федерации о судьбе крейсера «Москва», на котором случился пожар. Речь про флагман Черноморского флота России.
Но даже то, что есть посягательство на нашу территорию, есть казус белли, абсолютный повод к войне, настоящий, без дураков. Не всяких. Как это называется? Ну, что мы сейчас ведем?
Спецоперация России на территории
специальная военная
Украины.
операция. Сегодня ночью она кончилась. И она кончилась с тем, когда нападают на нашу родину с вами.
Когда вы говорите «ночью кончилась», вы имеете в виду крейсер «Москва»? Когда вы говорите про войну, вы имеете в виду объявление мобилизации тотальной?
Стоп. Я не хотел говорить о крейсере «Москве», тем более, что были разные, так сказать. Но вы сказали. Крейсер «Москва» — это абсолютный повод для войны. 100%. Это флагман наш. И здесь думать нечего. Здесь нужна ответка, но какая? Ее нужно придумать.
Спецоперацию России на Украине. То, во что это вылилось, уже смело можно называть, не лукавя, Третьей мировой войной. Совершенно точно. Мы прямо сейчас сражаемся, если не с НАТО, то уж точно с инфраструктурой НАТО. И это тоже надо осознавать. Соединенными Штатами Америки круглосуточно они по железной дороге поставляют оружие, круглосуточно по земле из Польши поставляют оружие. В этом смысле, конечно, не шутка, что надо очень серьезно подумать об уничтожении железнодорожных узлов. Там, конечно, вопросики, они все едут и едут, я имею в виду лидеры. Но лидеров надо предупредить, пусть дома сидят.
По Киеву тогда не приедут. Вот что нужно сделать. Вот этого не должно быть никогда. То, что мы сейчас видим на экране. А есть один способ ответить. Бабахнуть один раз и все.
меня. Короче, ух ты, блядь. Блядь, бомбят самолеты.
Now, locals reported 2 explosions that could be heard in the city center. Witnesses have also posted video footage, you're watching it right now, of what looks like very much like the air defenses working. Russian forces also had a Ukrainian helicopter in the Chernihiv region in Russia. According to officials, the aircraft was the one that yesterday attacked a village in the border region of Bryansk. In response to Ukraine's actions on Russian territory, a military facility in the outskirts of Kyiv has been targeted. The machine-building plant was said to produce and repair long- and medium-range anti-aircraft missile systems, as well as anti-ship missiles. The Russian Defense Ministry said it will directly respond to each attack on Russia.
The number and scale of missile strikes on targets in Kiev will increase in response to the Kiev nationalist regime committing any terrorist attacks or sabotage on Russian territory.
The following comments, well, they follow yesterday's attacks on the Bryansk and Belgorod regions of Western Russia. The country has accused Ukraine's armed forces of being responsible. Now, the Russian Investigative Committee claims the airstrikes were carried out by 2 combat helicopters equipped with heavy offensive weapons. At least 9 people, including a pregnant woman and child, were injured in the shelling. 2 of the casualties, including the child, are said to be in a serious condition. And on Wednesday, the Russian Defense Ministry said Moscow could target Kyiv's decision-making centers if, of course, Ukraine keeps bombing Russian border regions. Locals in Bryansk have told of how their houses were destroyed as a result of these strikes.
We've been through a lot, cried a lot. Everything has been exploding there. The neighbors have a bomb crater. The house was also hit. The beams broke in the barn.
When there was an explosion, I was lying on the couch. Glass rained down. I fell to the floor. Flower pots that were on the windowsill fell on me.
I was in the house. Then I went out on the porch. It's good that I didn't reach the gate, otherwise I would have been lying here. When I came out, I saw a blast wave that was like this.
We were in the house. We looked out of the window. There was dust everywhere, and then it started shaking. I went to another house. There was black smoke there. That was the one that was burned down and where a woman was injured.
Well, we discussed the possible motivation of Kyiv's attacks on Russia with military analyst Viktor Litovkin.
Kiev demonstrates its invincibility. By attacking Russian territories, Kiev wants to show that it's winning. Ukraine wants to show that despite Russia fighting in the east of Ukraine and its airstrikes, Ukrainian fuel and ammunition stores, military equipment, airfields, that's not all Kiev has. Ukraine has a lot of forces and it can attack Russia. And so Ukraine strikes at border territories, demonstrating its strength and insubordination. It's intriguing the world community, showing that the assistance provided by the West to Ukraine is not wasted.
The Pentagon is upping its supply of arms to Ukraine after President Biden announced an additional $800 million in military assistance to the country. Footage from an Air Force base in the U.S. state of Delaware shows weapons systems, believed to be Javelin anti-tank missiles, being prepared for shipment. These armaments are being sent to the Ukrainian military. This is who they are intended for. But as Don Corder explains, such weapons are eventually ending up in the hands of criminals and extremists.
Another $800 million of U.S. military aid en route to Ukraine. That's on top of the billions of dollars worth of weapons that the West has already sent Kyiv. And for some reason, nobody seems to care about where these guns are actually going.
There is the real threat that the Ukrainian government can potentially not control all of these weapons.
Where exactly is anywhere? Well, Kyiv's been handing out weapons to random people on the street with no military experience since the beginning of Russia's military operation. Ukraine's leadership also thought it would be a good idea not only to release felons onto the chaotic streets of a war zone, but also to give them guns.
Under martial law, participants in hostilities, Ukrainians with real combat experience, will be released from custody and will be able to compensate for their guilt in the hottest spots of the war. All sanctions are lifted from those people who took part in the anti-terrorist operation. The key now is defense.
These people aren't all thieves who stole candy from the corner store. Many of them were convicted of murder, ideal candidates for soldiers who will respect the laws of war. I guess it's not exactly the time for Kiev to be picky, though, since, according to its own military, 15,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed in the conflict so far. At the same time, Russia destroys more of Ukraine's command structures with every passing day, and the outcome we're starting to see is chaotic and out of control.
By arming citizens in a disorderly way, as is currently the case, the EU transforms them into fighters and therefore also into potential targets. Furthermore, without command, without operational purposes, the distribution of weapons inevitably leads to settling of scores, banditry and actions that are more lethal than effective.
Within Ukraine, a number of volunteer battalions with ambiguous loyalties to Kiev have already begun stockpiling these weapons. But beyond the country's borders, there's no telling to what extent these arms will help international weapons traffickers. Even before all these guns were released, Ukraine had one of the largest markets for illegal arms in Europe.
There are two primary sources of illicit small arms and ammunition in Ukraine: the diversion of domestic holdings and cross-border trafficking. Officials estimated that at least 300,000 small arms and light weapons were looted or lost between 2013 and 2015. Of these, only 4,000 weapons were reportedly recovered. Weapons from eastern Ukraine are becoming an important supply source for the black market.
According to some sources, Kiev has long had problems with theft and corruption in its military. When an official investigation was launched, the defense official in charge of it was court-martialed, and that was the end of the matter. Nonetheless, Kiev says it's in control.
Ukraine's current export control system makes illegal arms transfers from or via Ukraine practically impossible.
Sure, Ukraine might say that, but history tells us situations like these end badly. Look at all the state-of-the-art American weapons that the Taliban got its hands on when it came to power in Afghanistan. Libya, Iraq, Syria, all examples of how weapons plus chaos equals a lot of bad people getting their hands on guns. So sure, even though the West wouldn't send its own people to fight for its Ukrainian ally, it can give itself a pat on the back for flooding the country with weapons. But it remains to be seen what criminal elements the West is once again inadvertently creating and will have to fight further down the line.